Hello, hello, hello. Today I'm talking with Catherine Louis. We talked about volunteering for a search and rescue team, fixing an old refrigerator, and how setbacks are an opportunity to learn. I'm Yves Hanul from Who's Agile. My pronouns are he and him. Welcome to my channel. You see a lot of agilists around me on this screen. If you want to hear me interviewing, please click that subscribe button because these are the people that I've invited so far. If you think I'm missing people, let me know in the comments. And that like button, well, if you liked today's interview, don't forget to click it. Hello, hello everyone, and hello with me. I have Catherine. I think that's how I should pronounce your name. Is that correct?
That's right.
And well, I always like to ask it. So, and one of the things I want to show people as well is where we are. And I'm in Belgium. And actually, oh, my Google was still on where you are. So you're in Kerry, where actually a couple of friends are. Bob Galen is around there as well, and Laurie Williams is not that far away, if I'm correct.
That's right.
Is that? And of course, it's not the exact location. And if we go, you see that that was actually in US, and we're going to Ghent, to my location. And for the people that don't know you, me, I'm in Ghent, and that's at almost 8 o'clock in the evening. And what's the time on your side?
It's almost 2 p.m.
Almost 2 p.m. So we see that we have a big time zone difference, but that's thanks to all the technologies we are able to do these kind of remote recordings, which is really wonderful. Um, so before we jump into the questions, Catherine, could you, for the few people that don't know you, introduce yourself a little bit? What do you want people to know about you?
Sure. I'm Catherine Lewis, and I live in Cary, and I mostly work out of the Research Triangle Park area in North
Mhm.
Carolina, which is between Chapel Hill, Durham, and Raleigh. I'm into product strategy. I'm into reinvention and business agility. So what I mean by business agility is the ability of companies to sense what's happening outside of their company walls and to respond very quickly inside of their company walls. So those are my three interests. And
Mhm.
besides that, I'm a canine handler and trainer with a local search and rescue team.
Wow. You need to explain a little more because I'm not sure I understand that. So say some more about that. What does that mean?
In North Carolina, the Department of Emergency Management gets called when a local, like sheriff or local department, has a missing person, and that they need help and they need resources to go out and look. And I, my partner, my dog is sitting right here next to me, and she's got a great nose on her, and so I give her a scent article of the missing person, and then we together go try to find that missing person.
Wow.
Yeah, it's quite eh, it's a calling. I'd have to say it's a calling. And
And I can
once
imagine because it's a lot, I guess there is a lot of emotions involved, finding or non-finding people.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and for how long have you been doing this?
I can. So I have a picture in the kitchen of my
Mhm.
grandmother with a German Shepherd, and she raised and trained German Shepherds, importing them from Germany for the Chicago Police Department. And I was the 1-year-old baby that they put in the tree to train those dogs to find missing person. So
Wow, you have been doing that before you even know about it.
yeah, there's a really a legacy of
Wow.
it, and so that put me in context of dogs. Yeah,
And well, not just dogs, but also the I guess the whole purpose, because training in that sense, yeah. So wow,
yeah,
it's
yeah. We have a an event coming up because, as you know, we're getting more and more crowded, and what I'm certified for with her is wilderness search and rescue, finding somebody in woods, and it's been more and more increasingly suburban and urban. So on the 26th through the 29th, I'm hosting a suburban search and rescue clinic right here in Cary, and we'll hide people in hardware stores and liquor stores and have the dogs identify on the doors, and yeah, it's going to be fun and educational for the handlers.
Yeah, I can imagine. That's yeah. Wow, we're already moving, diving deep into things I totally didn't know. But this is what I love about this kind of conversations, because for me that's yeah, it's something that I didn't know. Well, I know this exists, but I've never met the person who's actually part of doing that. And
One thing that's really, the daily get-togethers, the daily planning sessions
mhm,
that are called stand-ups or daily scrums. It's very similar in an emergency where we finish doing something and then we come to debrief and we say, "Here's what we finished. What's the next thing that needs to happen?" And that this sense of urgency is like built in with search and rescue, uh, but with a very explicit overlay of safety, to make sure that everybody is safe. And if I can bring one thing from search and rescue into teams, I think it would be the safety thing.
mhm. Yeah, I think, well, for me, one of the places where you notice when stand-ups are not working good is when people are not feeling safe and they're kind of reporting or not saying much because they feel like, "Ah, maybe I had a bad day and I didn't deliver much." And it's like, can I say this? And yeah, that kind of, and that's, yeah, of course, the safety is in your kind of work is probably even more important. But I think in a way it's important in all the lessons that we, on all the work that we do, that people
Uh,
feel safe in whatever they
yeah, absolutely.
do. And did you, without going into the specifics, did you how many times a year do you need to do these kind of things,
But
outside of the training, I mean?
I think so far this year we've had 20 some call outs. And I would say I want to be prepared to go out and look at least once a month. We have many people that are unit members that can cover for us if somebody else can't go out. Um, but I'd say 20 a year, 20 call
Wow,
outs. Yeah.
that's impressive. And in a negative way, I wish we didn't need that kind of things to do that, but like once every month, 20 is almost like twice every month.
Mhm.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Wow. Um, and do you, when things happen, like, is there a debrief at the end about, okay, this went well, this what didn't go well, independent of the result, I would mean?
The period that we go out is we're prepared to go out 8 hours, and after that 8 hours, we debrief, and then we decide whether we're going out again. And then after a search is over, usually somebody from emergency management calls all the representatives that were there at that search in to figure out, hey, what can we learn from each other and do better? Yeah.
Hmm. Okay. That's
Yeah.
which seems very logical, but yeah, it's again, we don't think about all of that stuff when we hear about searches and things like that. So that's yeah, it's really wonderful that you're doing that kind of job. And like you say, it's a calling, because I can imagine that. Well, searching for for 8 hours straight is a long term. That is yeah.
Oh, yeah. We take breaks, so there's that too.
I hope,
Yeah.
but still, it's I well, even any kind of work that we're doing 8 hours without a break is impossible. But still, if you're doing it, um, the way I see it is very emotional work as well, because of course you start out with the idea we're going to find it, someone, or we're going to help out. But yeah, I can imagine the closer it comes to 8 hours, that it also is draining. Like, okay, are we still going to find someone or something this time, or
Yeah. I think one of the earliest lessons I learned, it was, you have this thing called your gut, and trust your gut is something that, you know you're you're a new searcher, you're going out, but then your gut's telling you something, you really need to listen to your gut on
Mm.
any kind of any kind of search, really, any kind of. I want to just step to the kitchen and get this photograph to
Yeah,
show
no
you.
problem, no problem.
This is the legacy of my grandmother.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's so nice that to see.
that's how I got
That's
started.
Yeah, because I know about, well, in Belgium at some point they started a whole organization for when kids are missing, but that started like even during my life. So these kind of things, of course, when people got missing, that of course was, yeah, probably is part of every part of happening, not just recent years, but these kind of ways of doing it, especially with dogs, I can imagine it's been going on for
Yeah, their
centuries already.
their ability to smell and detect. I
Mhm.
mean, it's nothing that we teach them. They come out of their the womb knowing how to distinguish between squirrel or rabbit or whatever. We're just uh, working with them and their
Mhm.
big nose brains. Yeah.
Yeah, you're just using them in an inappropriate way to say as a tool because they are so good at doing this, and you're kind of
She
training,
yeah,
basically training them to understand you, what you're looking for. Is
yeah,
that a
she
way to see
outsmarts me at least 10 times a day.
that? Yeah, that I can imagine. That's the other kind of thing. Wow, impressive. Okay, we already jumped into a whole different kind of story that I didn't see coming. Let's jump to that very first question. What is something that people usually don't know about you and has influenced you? That was already something I didn't know, but is there more?
Yeah, my mother is from Switzerland and she was a single parent. While I grew up in the States, having a mom who was a war baby, she was 14 years old when World War II ended, that has influenced me tremendously. I hate throwing anything away. I reuse, I recycle, I repurpose whenever possible. Instead of taking a pill for a headache, I drink water and go for a walk. If I'm cold, I do jumping jacks. What she really lived and what she taught me was that any setback in life is an opportunity to learn and reinvent. And I think that's a pretty good lesson to have in your back pocket.
Wow. And is that something that she actively taught, or is that something you learned because of the way she
It's
lived her life?
yeah, it's if you can imagine. So she was single in the 80s with 3 kids, and
Wow.
uh, she learned how to repair uh, scientific microscopes, clean and repair them as her job. And her influence for me was, anything is possible. Just go for it. Uh, I, so I think she just, um, I learned from her by her example.
More
Yeah.
than by teaching, it's really that the way she lived. And
Yeah.
yeah, I can imagine, well, I have 3 children. I know how hard it is as a couple to deal with that as a single mom, especially in the 80s. I think well, in my imagination, it's probably even harder. I think these days the world is more kind of accepting to single parenthood than it was in the 80s. Not sure if it's technically easier because, of course, there's other kind of things. But yeah, I do know that. Well, I grew up well somewhere in I was born in the 70s, so 70s, 80s grew up, and I yeah, I don't remember talking, knowing about people who were single parents, and I'm sure that there were, if I just look at the statistics. But apparently, it was somehow hidden for me, and I think that was a lot what happened in that time. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's the feeling I have about that.
Could be. Yeah. I mean, it certainly wasn't the norm.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I mean, it wasn't that we didn't have any rules. It was more like, you know, what what rule can we break? You know? It's funny.
But that's also, of course, a little bit with growing up. That indeed is, yeah, finding out what are the things you can break, or what are the ways how you can hack yourself around in the world in a way. Um, that yeah, that I can see with many people. Still, it's yeah, if you have a single mom, that definitely also means that. Yeah, you have to, yeah, handle a lot of stuff differently. If you have
Hmm.
a bad day, well, there are still three kids no matter what. If I have a bad day, I might have a conversation with my partner and she might take care of the children. That's not possible as a single parent. uh,
She, well, we had a Kanban board. I mean, this is before we even knew what Kanban boards were. It was
mhm.
like we'd get up in the morning and there'd be this big list of things that would have to be done before she'd get back from work. So there was a
Wow.
lot of a lot of relying on us to self-manage, which at that time, we didn't have cell phones, so that there was,
Yeah, there was no option that if you have a problem you need to solve it, because there's no way you can reach your mother before
yeah,
she's home, or vice versa.
that's right, that's right.
Yeah, that in that sense, I didn't have a Kanban board, but definitely there were sometimes to do things, and yeah, things that, or when we came home before our parents were home, that we knew, okay, we had to cook or we had to do something. Um, but that's again a lot different if you're just one parent. And if you look back now, because it's very clear with that story how that influenced you, but could you give some examples on things that you would do now in your life that you can trace back to that situation, if you want to share?
Yeah, I would say, the whole mom being a war baby, where right away, I mean, I had a refrigerator for 34 years. I replaced the control panel on it 3 times.
Wow.
Uh, and this is because personally, I didn't want to contribute to a landfill with a big refrigerator until the point where um, none of the parts were available anymore. And then I had to just say, it's time for a refrigerator. And then I was terribly disappointed that I was adding to the landfill. So these kind of things are, they my new refrigerator, they told me, would only last 5 years, which is terrible. They're making these new appliances to be thrown away. You know, so that's a pretty clear current example of her influence over me. Yeah.
Hmm. It's yeah, that the whole story about what I almost forgot it, that you said in the beginning, I never throw stuff away. I so recognize that. I have my other reasons for not throwing stuff away. In general, well, my partner might disagree. I was about to say I throw lots of stuff away, but certain things I don't. But probably if I look around, there's lots of stuff I keep as well. Um, but I have that especially with pictures, for example. I For things that happened in my past, I lost all my pictures from my youth, or almost all my pictures from my youth. So in that sense, like even if we take, I don't know, 20 pictures of a certain situation, I might still want to keep them, and for yeah, certain kind of reasons. And I recognize a lot of that. Like, okay, why would you indeed not keep something and try to repair, instead of, especially these days, phones are, yeah, breaking all very quickly, printers having troubles, whatever, that, yeah, all seems, indeed, a lot of things seems to be designed to break
Yeah, that's
before you
terrible.
can sell. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's kind of a throwaway culture, which is, you don't want to see. In 2022, I try to do personal education, like something that I want to do for myself. And I took a 10-week long course on how to reinvent, from learntoreinvent.com. And what what I learned was that my mother was like the best teacher of this. So that's another thing.
So
Yeah.
you tried to take a course and then you figured out, oh, I actually have learned it already when I was younger.
Yeah,
Is that
she
how I
was
should see it?
she is a consummate reinventor, That's a so it I mean the course is great. I would say take the become a certified reinvention professional. Uh, but I was thinking about her like all the time when we were going through content. Yeah.
Hmm. So, but yeah, it's also a nice way to recognize your parents in a way that you say, "Hey, I'm learning something," and it actually brings back a lot of memories. So that's a nice way to.
She another fun story about her. She was 78 when she met George and decided to get married again after being single for forever. And
Wow.
so she met the love of her life when she was almost 80, and she decided to get her hip replaced so that she could dance at the wedding. So
And she hadn't been doing that before because she
yeah,
felt like, oh, it's not needed, and then said, oh, I want to get married, but no, if yeah, I need to be repaired, whatever
that's
that
right.
means.
Yeah, that was a
That's
reinvention.
wow. But also again, yeah, and I think it's a nice example because um, it doesn't mean that you when you're that age that you can't again get married and
Yeah.
meet someone that you actually love, and that she was ready to say, okay, I'm going to share my life or the rest of my life with this person. And then it's also nice that you as children can be there and say, okay, this is now we see love in a
Yeah,
different way for
I
our
I think
partners.
it's a lovely story. Yeah,
Thanks for sharing that.
sure.
Okay, let's move to that next question. If you had not been doing what you've been doing now, do you have any idea what could have become of you?
Instead of being into product development, uh, I probably would have been a dog trainer full time,
Mm.
because I do this volunteering, um, or um, a chef specializing in teaching young people how to eat healthy. Um,
Hmm.
we have a terrible problem at grocery stores. Like the first aisle of Aldi's is all prepared foods and things that are bad for you, and it affects our youth today. Eating the wrong foods, it affects everybody's health. So one of those two, dog trainer or uh, cooking. Somehow cooking. Cooking is my love language.
It's but I hear more. It's not just because you say cooking is my love language, but I hear it's not just cooking, but it's also healthy cooking and teaching
Yeah.
youngsters or younger people uh, to live much more healthier. And is that healthy cooking? Where did you pick that up? Is that something you learned also at home, or is that something
Oh,
you've learned?
definitely the Swiss influence from my mother. Like definitely. If you can't pronounce an ingredient, you shouldn't buy it. You know, everything we had gardens. Everything was fresh, freshly prepared. Nothing prepared. Nothing packaged. If you had anything with potatoes, it began with a root vegetable rather than a box. Uh, I had a German student at Elon University stay with us, and her first year at school, they made her sign up for the meal program, and it was all food prepared by the Marriott chain. I forget what the name is, But she was actually physically sick within 2 weeks of eating the foods there. So we got her off of that with a medical excuse and got her a kitchen. They already had a kitchen in their rooms, but situated her kitchen with things she could use. And immediately she started feeling better, making foods that were actually nutritious. So yeah, it's almost it's almost a disease, eating unhealthy foods.
Hmm. I can see that, and it's yeah, our brains are so triggered. Well, first of all, just sugar, the way our
Oh yeah.
bodies are trained to love sugar, because indeed, 2,000 years ago, that was really important. Unfortunately, these days, it, we have too much sugar, so we should detrain our bodies for that.
I
But
don't
yeah,
know
there's
where you live. They have the best chocolates in the world,
that is true. That is true.
and I'm saying
Um,
this with a Swiss mother. So I mean I
oops,
prefer.
oops. Yeah,
Yeah, that's right.
yeah. But that's indeed something that, how would I say, sometimes is a discussion, is that this or that better. I try to stay away from these discussions, because all in the end it's, yeah, um, how would I say, yeah, it's more a preference, I think. But at the
Mhm,
same time, I think, with all of these things, it's about, um, not doing too much. I mean, I even know a person that, got ill from drinking too much water, and now talking about more than 7-8 liters a day for multiple weeks in a row. Yeah, that at some point, even water, which is rather healthy, I would say,
mhm,
becomes unhealthy, when you exaggerate on with the unhealthy food. It's, yeah, exaggerating is just after a couple of bites, I would say. With water, it's, luckily, a bit different. Um, but that's these are I really like your stories, because it's like, there's, okay, what could you be? It could be, okay, full-time working with dogs, cooking. There's also a lot of things there, so really wonderful. Yeah, that's I really like the stories, because it shows the richness of your life for me. And okay, with, even especially, maybe even more when growing up, um, with a single mother, there is not much you can do. I mean, there is literally having, in a way, like you said, your mother, survival of the war, is learning to survive in another world as well. And then still learning, hey, it's not just about eating anything, because if you yeah, it could be very tempting to do that, but no, also learning, like, hey, there is the healthy way, which is actually in the long run the much cheaper way. But
mhm.
yeah, it's,
Oh yeah. I remember we would have pancakes for breakfast and then pancake soup for dinner.
which I can imagine that was what was the only option that there was,
Mm,
but probably not the healthiest thing that you want to do now. But again, you live the way you live because of what is available at that time, I would say,
that's right.
in this kind of thing. But still, you learn from that also, in a way, to say, hey, wait a minute, uh, there's more in this world, and I can work in a different way. And I want to move to something a little bit similar, as because moving in that way might have been a challenge. So what do you consider your biggest challenge right now? At least the biggest challenge that you want to share openly on the internet, and why is it
Uh,
important for you?
so I would say helping companies reinvent at a much faster rate than ever before. So the lifespan of companies 50 years ago, this this was 75 years. And then moving to 2002, this turned out to be 15 years. And the Reinvention Academy has their latest data showing that the need to reinvent is more around 3 years. So, instead of focusing on helping a company with a massive agile transformation. It's really helping companies anticipate change, and what do they need to do to notice trends and risks before they get hit with them, and that's not
Mm.
easy. And then anytime you have change that you're introducing, you've got employee resistance to change. And I think instead of trying to reduce resistance, just helping face these fears as fast as possible. And then the last one I think um, that I struggle with is helping companies get into the minds and hearts of the customers to actually visualize what needs to be reinvented. And it's this pace from 75 to 15 to now you need to reinvent in 3 years. That's not easy for anybody, and the time to reinvent isn't when you're on the downhill side, but when you're actually doing really well, when
Hmm.
you're on the uphill side. And it's not a project. It should be a continual cycle of reinvention. So
Yeah,
yeah, that
especially if it's 3 years. With 75 years, you might think, oh, we have a long time, but three
sure.
years is like you hardly have already produced your current thing, and you have already been being prepared for the next thing.
And the
Um,
data from this Reinvention Academy for consultants is less than 13 months. The need to be able to address change. Uh,
wow.
yeah,
Which kind
it's
of explains why some companies want to do their agile transformations in less than a year, because they have no time to lose.
that's
But
right.
that's the harder part, is that changing that mindset and getting into that thing is taking longer probably than the whole innovation cycle that we currently have. Um, so yeah, it's and for you, when you discovered this, that okay, we're going from 57 to 15 to 3, how do you deal yourself? Because that's also a change. Yeah? How do you deal with this yourself?
Yeah, but as a business owner, I I had been, looking at, what sticks, what do people need, what do people want, and anticipating change is where I didn't do so well. So what do I need to do to for myself anticipate change? And the thing that is helping me the most are breakfast meetings with my clients, my clients who
Mm,
are friends. So in fact, tomorrow it's a lunch meeting, but I try to just sit down, eat lunch, and find out, what's bothering you today, you know,
mm.
and and then from there, seeing if I can sketch something on a napkin that might help them, and then talking further. So yeah, anticipating change is a big one. Because done with
Yeah.
this every 13 months. How do we anticipate change?
Mhm. And again, like especially as a business owner, you're helping others, but at the same time, you have to reinvent your own business as well, or thinking about what that is. And definitely, what we done a couple of years ago as change agents or whatever we call ourselves is different than it is definitely 10 years ago. But like you say, probably less than 3 years ago was also there. Well, especially 3 years ago, we had the pandemic, so everything changed all of a sudden.
Everything changed. Yeah.
And what is that part? So the second part of that question is, or that original question is, why is that a good thing for you? What's so good for that faster change for yourself?
If I'm able to anticipate change, long story short, my company survives. You know,
Mm.
I I can.
Which is usually a good thing.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good thing. And not just that, but if I'm helping others, that's what motivates me. If I can help others.
Mm,
The tricky
that's
part is you're on the uphill here, and that's when you should be really thinking about reinventing. But people are so nose to the ground trying to get their product out the door, and their revenues coming in. They don't want to be thinking about the next thing. So that's the tricky part.
yeah, definitely. That's like, yeah. They're so busy the thinking about how to get it out the door. So busy, like being happy that hey, this is finally working. I get something. We're on the steep growth because that's typically that last thing is growing even faster. We're really seeing like this is working, and
Hmm.
then you have to already think about yeah, but what's that next part? I recognize that part. So really wonderful story. Let's move to that next question. What drives you? Because in all of that change and everything, the stories that I hear you about working with your dog, about also about okay, cooking healthy for training younger people. I see a lot of passion. I see a lot of drive. Do you know where that passion or and that drive is coming from?
Yeah, I really love problem solving. Just and there's never a shortage of a problem to solve. I've probably the last 10 years. I've been uh, really trying to focus on getting younger people interested in agility. At the Agile 2024 conference, Sanjiv Augustine was on a panel, and he asked people to raise their hands if they were over 30, and then raise your hands if you're under 30. Guess how many people raised their hands at under 30?
I don't know, probably half of them, not more. I don't know.
Three.
Wow,
Three.
three.
So, I mean, that's just one data point, but it's kind of
Hmm.
what I've been seeing too. So, what what's been driving me like the last 10 years is try to partner with universities and HBCUs here locally and get some younger people in, like an intro to agility, an intro to reinvention tools. Because yeah, I think it's needed for them. We don't want this to just end up being a dying out thing with the over 30 crowd.
Oh yeah, that's definitely the thing. But I'm still surprised that there's so limited number of people under 30. But yeah, at the same time, it's definitely clear that there's less than the over 50 or over 8. Yeah, it's definitely that age difference is there. And thinking in a different way. Um, and I want to go back a little bit what you talked about solving because you like problem solving.
Hmm.
Can I link that in my head? It was immediately linked to what you said about being raised with your mother that basically, yeah, let you explore things and lets you figure out stuff. Is
Oh
there a
yeah,
link or do I, yeah.
definitely. Your bicycle all of a sudden didn't work. Well, here's some tools. See if you can figure it out. Because we're not going to buy you another bicycle. Yeah, definitely. The refrigerator that needs a new control panel. Uh, how she lived. I mean, she she really taught us by how she lived is that any kind of setback is an opportunity to learn and reinvent. So the problem solving's right in there.
But you didn't just learn it. For you, it became a kind of way of life. That's what I'm hearing. That's
Hmm.
that's kind of a passion that you want to do. So it's
Yeah,
it's more than just a tool that you've learned. It became much more. That's what I'm hearing.
yeah.
And
And
is
when
that
you're
something that you recognize with your, because you said you're one of three? Is that with your siblings? Is that similar or is that
yeah, definitely with all three of us. Yeah, you get when you're faced with a challenge, you gear up. You know, something
Mhm.
something fun to jump into.
It's not that they said, "Oh, Catherine, you solve it for us," and no, they all three you have that same kind of passion, I would say.
Yeah, she was a very gritty person. My mom, she had a lot of grit, and I think that's what she taught us.
Mhm. So yeah, well, it's wonderful. I really like that, and that's why I wanted to bring it back to kind of create a full circle because that's what I'm hearing. I really love that. So
What I
that yeah, go ahead, go
what
ahead.
I notice is when I'm like, I'm with a team and I'm coaching, and they have like some kind of hardship problem that they need to solve, and everybody gets in a down mood. It's kind of I'm thinking, I guess it's the opposite of what I'm feeling because, Mom, we just learned something. So let's dig in and see what else, you know. Yeah, it is. I notice it the most when I am working with people who are kind of the opposite, and then I have to tone down my liking the problemness because it might be overwhelming to other people who are afraid of problems.
Mhm. Yeah, that's a whole other kind of challenge, I would say. I mean, people who are afraid of challenges, people who are, yeah, sometimes feeling blocked or when things are happening. Um, did you have many friends when growing up that you recognized had a totally different way of looking at problems?
Not so much until I hit my first job at Bell Northern Research, the corporate world, and then meeting some people who, uh, yeah, that's a whole other path. Maybe we don't want
That's
to.
a whole, yeah, we don't need to go if you don't want
That's
to go.
another
But
call.
yeah, that's another
Yeah,
part.
I mean, like working with people who are blocked that could be a whole call. Yeah,
That I can definitely see that. But yeah, that's why I asked for, especially as a young person, I can imagine that if you've grown up that way and if you have friends who are different, then it might be different kind of things. But yeah, especially in the grown-up world, there is definitely a lot of people that are somehow blocked for whatever
I
reason.
I think that I think I was relied on from like 10 years of age to help problem solve from my friends, like help fix this bike, But I didn't think anything of it, you know.
No. Yeah, but
Yeah.
that's why I'm asking because I can imagine that for you, you grow up that way, but you don't really realize what how special that is until you grow up and then meet adults who have trouble of getting in that direction, I would say.
It just can be an extreme when my friends come over here and they're like, "Just get a new refrigerator already," as my control panel's torn up. No, I'm gonna fix this again. So
Mhm.
yeah,
But that's I can imagine at some point, yeah, people around you might find it very strange, but I can also imagine that for you it's there is some kind of challenge, like, okay, let's get it fixed. Um, as long as your food doesn't become unhealthy, because yeah,
that's
it
right.
won't be long without the refrigerator. If you can fix it in a rather quick way, that's fine. Yeah, I'm definitely not capable at that kind of level, but I do understand the drive to solve these kind of things at that kind of level. So really, for me, an inspiration to think about. Okay, what else is there in my house that would need much more repair? Yeah, I have. Well, I don't wouldn't call it a friend, but there's a local person in Belgium that. Yeah, is a maker and really is rather famous on YouTube with all kind of stories of things that he made and that in all kind of different ways. And I always love watching these videos because it's so wonderful the inspiration he does, and some of that is just fun for the videos, but a lot of this is really like, okay, I have this problem, my partner or my daughter asked this or that, and that's how I solve it. It's
Nice. You should
wonderful. It's
you should
yeah,
pass me that link. I
everything is in Dutch. I'm not sure how much you would understand,
Oh
but I'll
yeah.
definitely. I'll definitely send you the link. But I know that there's a lot of international people doing the same kind of thing, and they're all kind of creating their own small little communities. Um, I know in Belgium there's also another kind of way where they, how's it called, repair cafes, where you can actually basically bring everything, and there's a group of volunteers that will try to fix your refrigerator or your whatever that you bring. Again,
Hmm.
it's not always possible because sometimes, like you said earlier on, the people who created it might want to block you from changing stuff, but at the same time, yeah, they do are able. And I know that my parents, this year, went with something, would have cost them a lot of money to replace something. And they said, well, you know what, we're going to try a repair cafe. We'll just see what it does. And I think in the same day it was fixed for, I don't know, 1/10 of the money that it would have spent. And they were really proud that, oh, we can keep the old device we
Yeah,
have.
it feels good to not contribute to a landfill. Sure.
Exactly that. And that's on top of the money, it felt much more like, okay, we actually solved it in a much smarter way. I want to move to that next question about what do you consider your biggest achievement so far? And before we jump to that, what I've noticed when I talk to people about this, basically, this is your moment to brag. And I want to ask, is that easy for you, Catherine, to brag, to really be proud of something? Or
Yeah.
is that hard?
So I'm going to take this a different way.
No
I'm
problem.
I'm thinking about this question. I would have to say that my amazing family, uh, my network of friends, and my network of clients who are also my friends. Uh, I will. I'm totally proud of them. And the reason I'm picking this achievement is it really takes work to grow a healthy family and
Hmm.
to create deep friendships and have clients who are also friends. And I actually think it's something that we don't talk about enough. You know, just I want to say that the the basis is human kindness. You know, this I'm I'm super proud of my network of friends. And it does take work to focus on your family and focus on your friends and really care about your clients. And you can, like, your question, do you feel good bragging on yourself? I don't think that's the direction that I need to take to actually
Hmm.
make my clients my family. you know make my clients or really be part of my life.
Definitely, but that's and for me, asking that question, it's always interesting to see where people want to take that thing. And one of the things I've noticed with myself, but also with some other people, is that for many people, it's much easier to be proud of what friends and family have accomplished than what we've accomplished. And in a way, sometimes it's together. Um, but it's, yeah, I can be really proud of what friends have done, no matter what it is, professional or private. Much easier than sometimes be proud of, hey, I've achieved this or that.
Hmm.
um, and but like you say, in the end, it's more about the connection and about
Yeah, it's
and
building these connections with effort, you know
mhm. And that's,
and
I really like that you stress that, because yeah, any in Dutch there used to be, or I have a book that's called Love is a Verb. And I really like that because it is a constant struggle. Is maybe too hard, but it's hard work to keep working on a relationship, keep working on being a parent. And yeah, I'm pretty sure I made lots of mistakes as a parent, but that doesn't mean I can still improve and learn and do other kind of stuff. And
Mhm.
yeah, yeah, and just hope that in the end, yeah, my children will be, well, I don't know, better, but will be set in a world in a way that it helps them for what they
And I'm
very
sure they
challenging.
recognize your effort, you know.
Well,
Yeah.
they're teenagers right now, so that's a little bit hard to distinguish. And that's also part of I say teenagers 16, 19, and 22, but still, it's I definitely look different at my parents now that I'm over 50 than when I looked at my parents at age 20. That's for sure. Um, that's a different kind of way. Um, and still, they will call for help or they will ask for things. And I think that's part of creating a relationship, I would say.
I think one of the tips I would have to say that helped me is look at your calendar like the whole year and put in the times when you need to invest in your friendship, invest in your clients, invest in
Mm.
your family. You know, that
Yeah,
it so
that's
quickly goes away and you can't get that back. But if you like tomorrow is my lunch with my clients and friends. And that's every month we meet for lunch, and it's on the calendar. And I'm really proud of that effort that I spend, and proud of the time that I have with them.
I recognize that. What you just said about that calendar block, it remind. Well, I've learned it from Dr. Coffee that says, okay, look at 5 or 7 most important roles in your life, and then look at your calendar and look is really is my calendar linked to that important roles. If you say that I don't know, even just for yourself, self learning and everything. If you say that's important, it should show up in your calendar.
That's right.
If and if it doesn't, then you're just fooling yourself. Um, and well, I think with every partnership with our relationship, also we at some point we had to say, wait a minute. So now, since I don't know since when, but at least a year, I think or even more we set aside that when we're both of us together after dinner we have 5 to 10 minutes that we just look over our day. It's not very complex, it's there's not, but yeah, I already notice it on the days that we don't do it. It's
Mhm.
just very simple, it's a very small time, and there's still things to learn, still things to improve, but for me that taking that moment every day to look back, okay, what's your day tomorrow, it re- so what's the day what's been the day today, and especially what's the day tomorrow, helps on so many levels that we're less surprised, and it's taking that time. And to emphasize the point that you said about work, even if we had decided, it took a while before it became a habit, because that's
Mhm.
how habits works. You have to work on it before it's an automatism, I would say.
Yeah,
uh,
takes effort.
and I think that's true for all kind of relationships. And yeah, this is also why it's almost impossible, well, it's impossible to have close relationships with, I don't know, 2000 people, because I don't have that much time in my life.
Yeah, that's right. You can't. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You have to.
But you find a way that once a month you meet with friends and clients.
Yeah, I used to work with them,
Mhm.
and they're my clients today. And we keep each other in line. You know, I've
Mm.
known them for 25 years, so it's a yeah. So I don't have many friends, but the ones I have are uh, I could call at any time.
Yeah, I think that's important, that there are
Yeah.
people that you feel like I can call and they can call me. It might not be always the same. That might be something else, but typically the best friends is in both directions, I would say.
There's something else that I learned. Um, um, gosh, I want to say 12 years ago, and uh, I worked for Bell Northern Research, and we used to have uh, member mingle day, so that we would mingle to get a mentor in our courtyard. And we'd have two pieces of paper, and one piece of paper would say, "Here's what I need help with." Another piece of paper would say, this is what I just learned and I can help you with.
Mhm.
And we would just make connections and help one another. And that taught me that I needed mentors. Just you need as many mentors as you can get. And mentoring is a two-way relationship. And like 12 years ago, I met somebody who told me that every person should have their own board of directors, just like you have in a startup, you have a board of directors for a startup. So, who would be your own personal board of directors to tell you, to give you just some honest feedback of where you're going? And I have that concept as well. I think that's a pretty neat thing to think about. We have board of directors for our products and startups. And what about your personal board of directors? Who should you have on that?
I really like that. It's
Makes you think,
it, yeah,
who's going to give
exactly. It
me.
makes you think, and who's do yeah. I said for a while that okay, in my family, my partner is the product owner, deciding on some of that stuff, and in a way, well, a family, it's you have a small little team, and you have two people, especially when the children are young, who make decisions. But now that basically when my children are older, I also, well, for example, when we went on holiday, of course had their requirements, and they had said, well, this is probably the last time that we go together. We would like to have this or that kind of holiday, and so that is for not work, but still that's also important for us to say, okay, we want to yeah, go for that next level, and who do we listen to? And yeah, I think, yeah, for me, in many things in life, my children are part of making decisions. Uh,
Yeah,
yeah, again, that's and maybe it's more the mentoring thing than the decision, because again, if it's my or my partner's or joint money, maybe the children won't be able to decide everything, but they are kind of mentoring and giving some things that they would like to do, and we consult with them, and then in the end we might take the decision, um, depending on what kind of decision it is, of course, and how much involved they are. Yeah. Um, Really wonderful stories. I really like that. Yeah, these kind of things. So let's move. And you already started with giving a tip. So let's move to what would you call a personal agility tip that you have that you would share with us?
it's similar to what you do with your partner. I don't know if you can see this. I have a
Mhm.
our Kanban board, and we look look at this every morning, and what worked yesterday. What do we need to do differently today? Just over coffee, maybe 5 minutes, but it totally helps. So
Mm.
I am reiterating what you said that you do in the evening, but I we do it in the morning.
There is a reason why we don't do it in the morning, because my partner works in shifts. So, for example, right now, it's almost 9 o'clock, and she's still at work for another. Well, it will take 1 hour before she's here. So yeah, that tonight it doesn't work, but in many cases she has much more morning shifts, or I might be awake. Actually, both of us left the house this morning rather early, so that was not possible. And we indeed looked for a while for what's that right moment,
Hmm.
and we ended up at, okay, we'll try every day to eat together at the moments that is possible, and then we walk over to the day. And I'm pretty sure that tonight, after she's home, we will still find the time to do that, depending on how tired she is after work. But if we don't do it, then I already know that tomorrow there might be things that are harder if we haven't synced. Um,
Another tip I would share is, with this, we look at what are the lessons learned, of course, uh, but we also look at, do we have any limits? And so this allows you to say no. You know, I wasn't able to do that, so I know I'm not going to try to pull that in today. So what are your limits as well as your lessons?
Mm. Yeah, I really like that, because it's the options, the limits. I think it's really important to. Someone else I've interviewed, I we had a hard time coming up with the phrase, but he used to say, um, "Never say the sky is the limit when we have footprints on the moon." And I really like that as a kind of
Yeah,
thing. Like, okay, we think that the sky is the limit. We say it in the possibility, like everything is possible, and say, well, actually, the sky is a limit itself because you can go beyond that as well. And I really like that because it shows that, like, every time, even when we think we're not in a box, we're still in a box, and there is still some more
yeah.
that limits us in many
It,
different kind of
and
ways.
it sort of prevents you from overtaxing yourself and your family if you know what your limits are, and you can, together say, "Oh, we know we can't do that." You know.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, it helps to yeah, to know these kind of things. I think it's and at the same time to think, okay, that's the box, and then someone else might say, but it's good, especially. Um, I always learned that in school, in especially in art school, and if I have a godson, sorry, that is learning to photography, and I do remember from a friend that used to do photography that they were forcing you within exercises to do an exercise or to make pictures within a box. This you can't do, that you can't do, or this you have to do, and they had to be creative in that box. In the end, you can use everything you've learned, but it's every exercise, every picture they had to do was always in a way limiting you in thinking in a certain way, which forced you to, yeah, to think much harder into all kind of things, I would say.
I can
um,
imagine.
and yeah, I think, yeah, I personally like that as a way um, to understand the boxes that you're in, and to, okay, within that challenge you can still solve things, but in a way, with like what your mother said, okay, well, with your refrigerator, okay, there could be, you could replace it, and that's the easy solution. If there's money or not, that changes everything. But still, even if you do have the money, you can make that decision. I'm not going to replace it. Okay, okay, what else is possible? um, and I like that it kind of forces us to think in a different kind of way and look at a different kind of way at things. Um,
Yeah, thank heavens for YouTube videos that give us pointers.
that is definitely, if I look at the way my children are learning compared to what we had or what I had when I was growing up, yeah, it's incredible how much easier it is to learn in a way. And there was still information available, but it was less at our fingertips than it is today. Um, Today, it's almost the opposite problem. You have to select which YouTube video is the best to solve
That's
something,
right. Too
and
many
yeah, and
choices.
too many choices, and some are like half an hour, other are 5 minutes, and well, 5 minutes, the one that one doesn't solve it, but half an hour might be too long, and okay, where do I look? So yeah, so yeah, that's another kind of problem, I would say. um, but that's actually two kind of nice personal agility tips. Let's move to that next question. What have you learned about remote working, and did you do a lot of remote working, for example, before COVID?
Yes, lots of remote working before COVID. Uh, but post COVID, I think what I've learned, uh, it's going to sound silly, but fresh grapes placed in a well trafficked area in your house prevents you from uh, eating anything that's not good for you, or eating something before you're. So
Oh
yeah,
yeah, I so recognize that yeah, if you have, if you don't need to think about it and you just eat healthy food on the way to the closet or whatever, yeah,
yeah, it's
I'm
just right around the corner, and you have to pass by there in order to just get about anywhere in the house. And just fresh cold grapes, they're so good and they're so
mm,
healthy, and
yeah,
you
I
stave off
really
any
like that.
hunger. Yeah.
I really like that. I'm yeah. When I lived off welfare at some point, and one of the things I said is like, I'm not going to buy unhealthy cookies and whatever. So for me at that time, it was very easy to stay off healthy stuff because I didn't have it into my house. But with children, it's a lot harder because they always want something, and especially we just finished exams in Belgium, and so we want to have some things in there for the students, and then it's very tempting, like in the evening, oh, still have a snack there, still, and it's like no, if you have healthy stuff closer by, I would say, so much better. That's yeah, um, probably a very great tip for working remote. When you're working from home, make sure that you're surrounded with healthy food and you're not just yeah.
Yeah, put them out so you have to get them so that
Mhm.
everything else is goes away.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That I really like that. That's wonderful things there. Okay, let's move to that next question. What is a book that you have read that you want to talk about? Is
I
there?
have this book sitting right next to me, by Richard Rummelt, Good Strategy, Bad Strategy,
Mhm,
The Difference in Why It Matters. And, so many pages I've earmarked. Um, he defines the kernel of a good strategy in a way that I really like, and I've been using this in retrospectives. So he doesn't include the title, but I've added a title.
mhm,
You have the problem, and he calls it, what is the diagnosis? Basically saying, how did we get to the point here where we are now? Like, what was the
mhm,
problem that preceded this before we need any sort of objective? How did we get here? And why I like this is, if you look at classic OKRs, they begin with an objective, but not any kind of problem. And
mm.
that's really hard to get people in a room to agree on. Well, how did we get here to where we are right now? And so if you begin with this diagnosis, and then you go to some kind of guiding policy, what are we going to do differently? And then finally the things we're going to be doing, features or updates or whatever, are coherent actions. The reason I like this, and I pass these out in retrospectives, is we get, instead of strategy being talked about in only boardrooms by top few people, you're you're hearing strategy being talked about by everybody.
I really like that, especially because, like you say, that you look at yeah, you basically you try to unite people in the beginning about the problem, um, which is in a way part of the retrospective, where that first step that many people sometimes seems to forget, that part where we gather the data. Let's look at where are we, and you say it's not just the data, but it's also what strategy got us to that kind of data, and what so that's yeah, it's again, it's important in retrospectives to align people on, do we agree on the problem, because otherwise we will never agree on the solution, of course, if we're not already agreeing on the problem itself.
And the other thing I like is the many, many, many examples of how a strategy went badly. And
Mm.
you can always learn from other people's mistakes, but it's a good book. Yeah.
I really like that. It's it. I didn't know the book, But definitely, when I hear your description, it sounds like a book that is interesting. Yeah, to know the difference between a good and a bad strategy. And from the uh, yeah, I don't know.
I, I
But
think the other thing
sorry.
that so a good strategy is these three things, and they're all coordinated. So it's not just we have a problem, but we have policies and then things we're doing, and we're continually looking at how they're going. You know,
Mm.
it's pretty
Sounds
useful
definitely
actually.
something that I could have helped me in the past, when yeah, I didn't
Me
give enough guidance for
me
things.
me too. That's why I'm trying to make, because his the choice of his words is, or sometimes I have to read it 3 times and go, oh, what he means by this is problem. Why didn't you use the word problem? Um, so I wanted to make it easy. That's why I made a little cheat sheet for
And
people
is
to
that
talk
then
about.
because it's well, I think the book is more than 5 years old, I think,
Yeah,
right?
it's an older book.
Um,
Yeah.
so is that because he's using old languages, or is that, I don't know, because he wants to sound smart or whatever? Do you have
I
any
don't know.
idea?
Hey, maybe. Uh, mm, I'm not really sure. Academia, maybe.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm not really sure. Everybody writes in a particular way.
Yeah, that's a little bit why I'm asking, to try to understand what's the kind of
Yeah,
thing. But but again, sounds like a book that's for me part of the problem that I have with every interview I do, is like yet another book I want to read, and every
I know.
time I'm convinced this is the next book on my pile, and then tomorrow I'll do another interview and I might have yet another book.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's at least I'm discovering a lot of books. But this is definitely something, in just the last couple of years I run into troubles with strategy. So definitely something that might be really helpful for
I
me.
had a I went to the Scrum gathering this year, and I brought in 12 boxes of Scrabble.
Hmm.
So this is the games board game Scrabble where you make the words. And I asked people to not just make a move before you're playing, but think about what your strategy is. And then can you relate that strategy to some kind of thing happening at work that is a work strategy that needs to be talked about? And then if so, write one of these down. And then at the very
Hmm.
end of the presentation, it was just full of stuff that companies should be doing. you know, it's like, wow, you were inspired by Scrabble to find your own strategy. There's product development strategy and gaming strategies. It has a lot of overlap.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. And sometimes it takes us again to get out of the box, to think in a different way,
Mhm.
and all of a sudden we realize that, hey, wait a minute, that's actually the problem. I do remember my first Lego play series, where we were supposed to create something with our hands in Lego, and then afterwards create an explanation. We needed to create something about our team. I think it was something about our team, and then we needed to explain what it was. And I do remember not really sure about. Okay, I like playing with Lego. That's nice. So I'll create something, and I think it kind of resembles the team. And then afterwards, I had to give an explanation, and I was surprised to hear my own words, like, "Oh, this is why." Is that, of course, yeah, it's just the explanation you give after the fact, but it kind of ways brings a different way to talk about the team, and a different way to once. Well, I needed to learn to trust the words that were coming out of my mouth, and trust, like, okay, somehow my body and my brain knows the things I want to say. And then when you indeed involve that kind of play into things, you realize that, or I realized that I knew much more about the things that were going on than I was able to say before.
Yeah, play is so important.
It's
Yeah.
definitely something that. is helpful in many different ways. And in the companies where it feels like it's almost illegal to play, that kind of shows much of the problems that they having in different kind of ways, I would say. I want to move to that next question. What's a question that you think I should also ask you? And after such a lovely conversation that we had already, I'm really looking forward to what would be your answer to that one.
Um, Ask me what I'm doing for the Agile community.
So tell me, Catherine, what are you doing for the Agile community?
I have been hosting a meetup group. At pre-COVID, it used to be in person at Research Triangle Park. Actually, the last 4 years, it's been virtual. We meet the first Tuesday of the month at 6:30 Eastern, which is not a good time for you. Um,
Probably not.
but I'm always looking for new speakers. I support people of color, LGBTQI, any sort of somebody who has uh, any kind of agile talk. You know, collaborate, deliver, reflect, improve, anything on that. And um, we have Dr. Nadia Zhishimbayava, the reinvention queen, speaking in November. But I'm looking to fill the whole beginning of 2025 with speakers. So if anybody's interested in speaking at Agile RTP, it's meetup.com/Agile RTP.
I will definitely link the yeah this event in the show notes. Um, I'm not yet sure when we were going to air. Of course, the people who are reading it here or listening here will already know. I just didn't figure it out. I didn't look at the timing yet. Um, but it might be good. I think it's a good way to find more people. I will definitely also add that to the show notes. Like, okay, feel free or please contact yeah, Catherine to find
It,
extra speakers.
yeah, it's our meetup has almost 3,500 members, and it's been going
Wow,
for a long time. So it's not a real trivial thing either. I mean, if you want to reach out and network, you're welcome to join.
definitely. Well, these days, I have to say, I really love connecting remotely because I've discovered that well before COVID, but I discovered it even more during that. Hey, this is allowing me to connect to friends all over the world without having to leave my home. With right now, like I said, my children, this is probably the last couple of years that they will live at home, so I
Yeah.
try to stay as much as home as possible. um, but for me, doing this podcast and the recording is also limiting the time that I have to talk with to go to other events. But it's definitely something I'm trying to find the time, like, okay, limiting to 1 to 2 conversations I'm recording in a week and having more time for events. Somehow, just in September, things boomed again because this week I have 4 recordings. I realized that just before we started this one, that this is probably too much for this week. I'll see Saturday afternoon how much energy I still have. But usually, just like today, these give me a lot of energy. So yeah, that's. But I'll definitely add the link to the show notes, and both to where people can contact you, and then of course find more about the event if they want to learn more. To contact with people because I assume not everybody is from around there, but is more from a larger global because
It's
3,500. Uh,
yeah, it's from now internationally
mhm.
attended. Yeah,
Not many cities have 3,500 agilists, I would
that's
say.
right.
So I would be really surprised. Um, okay, I would like to go to that next question. Who do you think I should invite next? And I think you had one name in
Yeah,
mind.
April Biggs. She's She's from
And
my
I
area.
think this is her.
That's her. That's her. Yeah. She's from my area, and I'm unfortunately delinquent in meeting her for lunch and having her on my Agile RTP meetup. She's an enterprise coach. Uh, Another really amazing thing about her is that she's a seminarian and she has a super strong focus on bringing humanity and purpose into the workplace. Just so
Wow.
when she talks, you listen.
I like that. That's yeah, that's um yeah, that's and I think yeah, I think that is sometimes also important to give more people a voice that might be less known in the rest of the world, and to also yeah give more people, because for me that's one of the reasons why I started doing this, to make sure that I have yeah more it's for me it's not just bringing about the big agile names, but it's also about who are the actual people doing it, and
Hmm.
some of them might be known, some of them might be already speakers or trainers or whatever, and some might be just doing that in a small little corner. I have the feeling that that she's like a little bit in the middle there, because I think she's already a certified coach and things like that, so it's not like she's just doing it in a small little team. Um, but again, probably not a name that is known all around the world yet. So let's change that, I would say.
Yes.
So, Catherine, I really want to thank you for your time, because it's been a
And
wonderful time that we spent.
thank you
Um,
too. And how's your foot?
It's still okay. I'm actually,
Good.
it's yeah. So for the people, I think we discussed that in the pre-talk. So I did hurt my foot last week at DevOps Days, and so standing, I thought could be an issue, but it's actually going fine. I will sit down after this, but I don't feel it. It doesn't hurt. Before we started, I was wondering if it would hurt. So, Catherine, for the people that want to reach out to you, what's a good way to connect with you?
My website, cll-group.com, or LinkedIn/IN, Catherine Lewis. Either one of those is fine.
I
Yeah.
think I created or I linked to LinkedIn, because these days it feels like that's the most used
It's very,
ways of connecting to
very
people,
used. Yeah.
and so that's why I picked that one. Like I said, really wonderful time. Um, it's yeah, it's
Thank
amazing
you.
always to meet people that I've never met before, and then being so yeah kind of drawn into the stories right from the start, with your dog, with everything, that the way what from your grandmother to
There's
your mother to yeah to your friends.
there's there's my dog.
Ah,
She's
and
been here the whole time.
and being paying attention and saying, oh, you're talking about me, and at the same time um allowing us to have a conversation, not drawing the attention. Uh,
Yes, she's good. She's a good girl. Yeah.
well,
Well,
it's
thank you. I really appreciate finally getting to meet you. Um, Again, I've heard your name forever too. Yeah.
forever. Wow, that's that's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's one of the things with creating a podcast like this, that I'm not always sure where people pick this up. And yeah, I've done a couple of community activities that yeah have brought me to many different places. That's for sure. And it's always nice to then meet some people that yeah that might know my name and I haven't met. Still remember, I think Agile 2007 or something like that, being somewhere there, and then somebody coming to me and saying, "You Eve, you're Eve. I want to talk to you." It's like, "Whoa, okay."
Yeah.
And then in the end, it turned out to be someone I really admire. So
That's awesome.
was even
Are
more.
are you planning on attending the next Agile 2025?
Uh, and for a couple of years, I've been not going to the United States. It started before with your previous president that I was not a really fan of.
Right.
But at this point, I think the hardest part is that in the middle of the holidays, and also with children that might have exams like immediately after that. So at this point, It's kind of the problem with it is that I would need to decide like months before I actually have data to know if I can make it or not.
Right.
So that usually is why the last couple of years I haven't done it. Um, and so I don't know, but this is like I said with this podcast, I'm able to meet people around the world and still be in my own bed and connect with my family.
That's
Um,
awesome.
the children that do have exams, they're like, yeah, we don't need you. You can just go away. And like, yeah, but I still prefer to be at home. And just when was it? The last exam was Saturday, and on Friday night, actually, I was already in my bedroom. The light was not turned off, but there was like knocking off on the door. Could you help me for one little part? I was like,
Yeah, that's
of course I will help.
yeah.
That's what I said right from the start. If I would have been at the conference somewhere else, that would not have been an option. Uh, but
That's
even if
awesome.
I did that DevOps last week, I made the conscious decision to be every night in my own bed, just to be, even if I would mean a couple of hours less sleep. But if there would have been need of me, I could have jumped in and help out. I think, yeah, and that's well, it's just for a couple of years like this, and after that, I will be again much more free to go to conferences around the world. So for now, it's a little pause on a lot of international things, depending on the timing. Um, but I'm pretty sure that there will be a moment I will be going back. That's for sure. That's already now that I'm, yeah, already saying for a couple of years, like, yeah, it's been a while. Let's see when I will be back. And let's see that. Okay, Catherine, really thankful for your time and goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you for watching Who's Agile, where the stories of Agilists come to life. I hope you liked today's interview. Subscribe if you're not subscribed and want to get to know other Agilists.